Right, before I start today, I just wanted to say a really quick thank you to Dark Productions. He gave me a bit of help with putting together the thumbnail screenshot for this one. I imagine most of you will already be familiar with his channel. If not, I'll leave a link in the description for you. Now, I responded to a comment on the Kfir video about what I thought the best 13.0 is right now. And I still think there isn't a definitive best 13.0. Also, I haven't played a lot of them in some time now. However, the Su-33 for me is right up there. At the very least, it's my favourite 13.0 right now. You may consider it a side grade to the Su-27, which has more countermeasures, better acceleration and a better flight model. However, the 33 gets 2 extra missiles and most importantly, a digital RWR. I'll have to fly the 27 a bit more to see how I feel, but having a proper RWR in the Fox 3 meta is crucial. I can also compare it to the Kfir C10, which I did fly recently. The main problem I have with that is in the up tiers you're in a much weaker airframe and you've got that small loadout. Then in the down tiers it's hard to take full advantage because of that small loadout. The Su-33 doesn't have these issues. You have such a huge loadout that you can pick up so many kills without ever having to RTB. Now I'm going to show you some gameplay as usual and also try to give you some tips on leveraging the ERs, because the compromise that you're making with the Su-33 is you obviously don't have any Fox 3s. However, the ERs, if used correctly in some scenarios, can be better than a Fox 3, and I'm going to show you a bit of that. Now, you may have noticed in the background clip I'm starting the game in TWS head-on. With these flanker radars you should make use of the head-on mode, especially in the start. You'll pick up targets a lot quicker and easier. I'm also firing this missile outside the no escape zone. When you have so many missiles you may as well get some early launches in, especially as they are of course semi-active missiles, so you can't fire a flurry at multiple targets at once. So I want to get a few early launches in to shed some weight ideally, and as you'll see I'll get an early kill as well. ERs also have a very big warhead, more explosive mass than any of the Fox 3s, excluding of course the Phoenix or Fakor. That means they can be hard to multipath without taking some splash damage, so if I'm nice and high up like here, I'm happy to fire at low down targets. That said, however, this MiG-29 does seem to manage to multipath this missile, or he does just manage to notch it, given you see my radar does switch to track IR a couple of times as he notches my radar. I go for the off-bore 73, it doesn't seem to pull into him though, it seems to switch to the F20 and then run out of energy. Gonna make a mistake here because I thought I was just coming in here to try and like pick up an easy third kill. However, the MiG-29 has managed to turn into me. Now I've got to notch this ER, so I'm just desperately throwing it around into the notch, dumping chaff and pulling up a bit, and I just managed to pull out of the trajectory while I'm in the notch, then flare off this missile as someone else picks up the kill. Gonna cut ahead slightly now as I'm just flying towards the middle of the map looking for more targets when I spot a friendly who's gonna get ambushed from below. Gonna fire my last ER, but you'll see he does shortly manage to notch this. Then I'm getting low because I want to use multipath if I can. If I do receive counterfire, I want to stay aggressive right here as you see me use my 2 ETs just to clean up these two guys. You know, I wanted to finish this off as quickly as I could. You know, in a protracted long dogfight, an Su-33 isn't really something I want to be in, especially 2v1, because I'm going to run out of energy very quickly and I'm just going to be a sitting duck. So instead I'm using it to just sort of come in fast, pick up those 2 kills and then get out. That is worth noting though, I'm not taking the maximum ER loadout, I am swapping out the 2 pylons that can be for ETs for situations like that. I went for the ER first because I had a bit of time and distance to potentially guide one in, but even though I had no ERs left, I still would have been using the ETs right at the end there, because once I'm in that range, I don't want to be stuck guiding an ER in while there's another person who's potentially going to go for me. Whilst in that situation it probably would have worked out anyway, I wanted the ability to fire off my second missile without breaking guidance on the first, should I have needed to. Now in the background you see I've cut ahead to the end of the game and I fired 2 ERs at this Mirage 4000 down low multipathing, and both of them collect hits on the splash damage. That's what I was talking about earlier, and that damage is going to set me up nicely for this dogfight. He's not dead though, so we're going to go into the merge. I'm going to flare off the IR he fires and he's going to flare off mine. And as we merge, you can visibly see how much his airframe is struggling. Whilst he's probably just taken off and has got high fuel and, you know, most of his missiles, I've also got the same. But because of those crits I got with my ERs before this, you know, that really just compounds the issue and his plane just doesn't want to be in the air right now. I get a 73 off, he's not pre-flaring, he doesn't flare till super late, so that's not going anywhere. And I get kill number 5. Now, before this clip, earlier in this game, I had spotted someone on my TWS going to their long airfield, so I need to be conscious of that, but he's not my RWR right now, so I'm just going to go for this guy on the runway. I'm going to try and get rid of this Su-33 before he can take off. Going to pick up just a little bit of altitude for the ER just to try and loop it on top of him a bit. Give the ET as well, no reason not to. I'm just trying to make sure that, you know, even if I don't get the kill, I stop him from taking off effectively. Then get the ER as we spot the Mirage coming in. He's not a multi-path height, so he's just going to fly head on into that one, and I'm just going to loop back around and finish off this Su-34. Now, as I mentioned, my focus of this video is going to be the ERs, because this is going to be the missile that you'll be getting most of your kills with. The ETs are also really good, but you only get 2 of them, and I've covered them a lot in the past, so I didn't want to dwell on them too much. Now, the ERs have obviously been in the game for quite a long time, and as a result, all the tips I've got for you, I have seen or heard in some format before, so apologies if some of this isn't exactly new to you, but I also haven't seen a huge amount of gameplay with some of these tips applied. So I'm hoping to show you some specific examples with a bit of sensor analysis breakdown where appropriate to, you know, give you a better idea of how to apply all this. Now, in this clip in the background, I'm just approaching a Furball here, having claimed the high up airspace. Now, an issue you have contesting Furballs when you're using Fox 3s, which you will have heard me mention a few times, is you can't really fire into it. I wouldn't be firing Fox 3s into here because you're pretty much guaranteed to get team kills. However, with the ERs, being they're a semi-active missile, and because you can relock them at any point you want, I'm not worried about getting team kills here. I can happily fire missiles into this, collect kills, and I'm in no danger of killing my teammates despite there being so many of them around. If someone crosses over my target and my radar switches lock to them, it's fine because I can simply break the lock or just relock back onto an enemy and continue guiding my missile in. A Fox 3, however, if it switches target, is probably going to collect the team kill, and that's a big benefit to the ERs, is it makes it a lot easier for you to skirt the edges of the Furball and just snipe targets without any danger of taking out your teammates. Couple of fun games I had on the small Spain map now, and as I'm turning in here, I'm looking to fire on this F-14 with my HMD. I fire the missile, and shortly after you're going to see he gets killed by someone else. So now I'm simply just going to fish with my HMD, and I do happen to find someone. So I quickly lock him up, and you see how, you know, I look at the missile tracking camera, and I've re-guided it onto that target now. So, you know, I fired that missile at a target who died, but I'm still able to collect a kill with the same missile. Again, you probably wouldn't be pulling this off of a Fox 3. A Fox 3 is just going to track the, you know, the corpse of the F-14, and you're not going to be able to do anything to direct it elsewhere. So I get to pick up a kill there that I wouldn't have got with a Fox 3. Now I'm going to push into this merge low down. I'm going to use this ridge because there's a few of them. I did think about committing to the head-on with that F-15, but, you know, I didn't want to eat it from the Vulcan. I get the R-73 off on this Su-33, and it doesn't spin out for once in my life, which is always good to see. One thing to try and get comfortable with the Su-33, like all the flankers, is picking the best missile for each situation, like the R-73 there, the ET there, because that's rear aspect, too long range for the 73, and it's going to be very hard to flare for him unless he spots it straight away. Here's the next one on Spain. I've cut out most of the start of this match. My videos tend to get quite long, and if I include full games, especially when there's certain things I want to focus on, the length of the video just gets a bit crazy, you know. So here I lock up this F-20 and I fire a very ambitious ER, which almost does kill him, to be fair, but as soon as it passes him, I see that F-4S coming towards me, so I quickly get the lock on him, and you see I managed to re-guide the missile onto him, and again, probably wouldn't be doing that with a Fox 3. The Fox 3 is probably just going to go nowhere. Now, this F4F is going to drive this ER into the ground, but using the radar lock, I can slave a 73, so you see how it ignores his pre-flares, and he didn't change trajectory or continue flaring, so the missile still connects. Again, I use my radar to slave a 73 onto this F20. He doesn't flare at all for some reason, and he eats that missile, and I get another easy kill. So next up, I did a couple of 1v1 duels with my friend Carlos, who was going to fly the F4F Ice. I wanted to look at how does this match up against a 13.0 that's equipped with Fox 3s, namely AIM 120s. Here I've fired my ER about the same time he's fired an AMRAM. I'm going to put him on the gimbal limit and I'm going to hold my lock until the last possible second, holding my nerve until I move into the notch to get rid of his missile. So it's important to note the ER is faster than an AMRAM if you're both moving around the same speed. So you see here at this point in sensor view, we're both going about the same speed. We both launch about the same time. And I'm just going to hold my lock all the way in, make it super hard for him to avoid it, and defend at the last possible second. Obviously, a 1v1 scenario like this is pretty rare in ARB, and this is kind of niche, but it's a good thing to keep in mind that if you hold your nerve, you can beat the Fox 3 carriers in a joust. Another example here of where you don't have the luxury of guiding it all the way in. So I've got a missile out on me, I get my ER out, I immediately break the lock and go defensive against the AMRAM, and then once I feel like I've gotten rid of it, I'm going to turn back in, relock him. I'm going to have a quick look in missile tracking camera and see that it has relocked him, and now he just doesn't have the time to properly defend that. Let's take a look at that one in sensor view. So you see the AMRAM come out. I'm going to fish for the lock. I want to get a missile in the air before I defend. I managed to get the lock. I launched my ER. I've given it the initial inertial guidance and tracking, so it's going to go roughly in his direction as I defend. I get rid of the AMRAM. I recommit. I relock him, and you see how the missile, because it's got that data link feature on the ER, I can re-guide it back in after breaking the lock. Look at it from Carlos's perspective. So this is an interesting quirk as well. You see how he gets that initial launch warning when I fire, but as soon as I break the lock, he's got nothing on his RWR. He probably knows it's coming his way, but he doesn't know where it is. He doesn't have any information until I finally relock him again, and then he has like no time. He's desperately trying to defend, but it's just, it's too much at that point. So it's all well and good me showing you that in a 1v1 custom, where it's a lot easier to try out different techs and strategies like that when you don't have the pressure of multiple people possibly firing at you. And it is a bit niche in ARB. Don't cling to the idea that you're going to pull this off. It's just a useful thing to know if you get into a situation where it may be of use to you. Most of your kills are just going to be sniping, guiding your ERs in from distance against people who aren't suspecting. However, here I'm going to fire at this F-14 as I then move in to notch this Phoenix. I lose my lock briefly as I notch the Phoenix, but I can pick up the lock again. I go into the missile tracking camera and I see that I have kept the ER on target and I'm going to get the kill. Not quite the same, I only lost the lock briefly there, but I'll have a better clip after this one. For now though, let's look at that one in sensor view. So one thing I noted here, that this is a Phoenix and not a Fakor, by how fast it was moving, not moving nearly as fast. So instead of notching it in the direction I was going, which would have been easier, I decided to turn through and notch on the other side so I can get aggressive on this F-14 to prevent him from turning back in. Then after I get the launch off, I'm going to quickly notch the missile, relock again, use that data link feature of the ER, get it back on target, and then guide it in for the kill. Moving into the next clip, first up, I'm just tracking this guy ahead of me. I was going to fire, but he starts turning through the notch. I did want to fire an ET, but I hadn't changed my loadout on this one. I was carrying 8 ERs, so I can't fire an ET. Instead, I spot this F-16 down low, so I'm going to send an ER down to him. Going to be very hard for him to get rid of that, so I pick up an easy kill. And then after I get the kill, I'm going to pull up, and suddenly I've got a couple of people that have pushed me. Now, I'm going to get the missile off on that guy up high, and then someone else is going to launch on me, so I'm forced to go immediately defensive. I notch the missile, and I can see that it's going underneath me, so I relock again. I actually fire a second ER, because I just assumed my first one would actually have, gone too far. I thought it was going to be past him at this point. But it does actually collect the kill on the first missile as I notch his AMRAM. So let's have a look at it in sensor view. So first up at the start here, this is just me guiding that missile down to the F-16. You see I get the launch off here, then I'm immediately defensive. It switches to IOG plus DL when I lose the lock. After I notch the missile, you see when I pick up the lock, it reacquires him and gets the kill for me. Cutting back to the rest of that game now, I'm going to start pitching down to pick some speed up. I lost a lot of speed in those maneuvers up high. You know, you lose your speed very quickly when you're notching and maneuvering, so be aware of that. So I'm just going to start cutting my altitude just to pick some speed up as I get an easy ER kill on this F-15. And then I'm just going to cut ahead a bit a little later in the game. Now, the remainder of this game isn't exactly skillful gameplay or anything, but it also touches on what I mentioned at the start about the ERs being a lot safer when you've got a lot of teammates around than a Fox 3. Probably would have got away with a Fox 3 for this one, but he does move through the notch and I can keep it on target, you know, using my own radar. And also, my teammates do get quite close towards the end, so there is that slight danger that it could switch targets. Again, probably wouldn't in that case, but it's just a good little example that you can be a lot more comfortable with your launches when you're using the ERs. Again here, as I fire on, I think it's an F-15, no, it's a flanker that pops up ahead of me. I probably wouldn't be firing a Fox 3 in this situation because, as you see, by the time my missile connects, he's right next to that JF-17. So there'd be a lot of risk of the Fox 3 switching last second. Even with an IR missile there, because they cross over quite close, you know, if they overlap, there's a reasonable chance even an IR missile would flick to the JF-17. With an ER, I don't have those issues because even if the lock does switch, unless it's literally at the last possible second, I can just break the lock or relock it back onto where I want it to go. That's all for today. I'll have to fly the 13.0 Su-27 because I suspect I'll enjoy that as well given my time in this, but for now the Su-33 is definitely my favourite 13.0 to fly. I've enjoyed playing it much more than say the Kfir C-10 or the F4F at 13.0, both of which I played fairly recently. It just has a much more effective loadout, the flight model is perfectly serviceable for AirRB, your main struggle will be dealing with multi-target engagements as you're reliant on semi-active missiles of course. However, with good positioning you can lessen this impact. Sure, you probably won't be clutching games outnumbered, but there's very few planes in the game that are capable of that anyway. Just be aware, if you're new to top tier and you're considering buying it, the learning curve will be steep for you. I've never really commented in the past on what you should do with your money. I always wanted to focus mainly on tutorial and play-by-play style content, but I just wanted to put that little warning out there given you can get it for free eventually via the Squadron RP anyway. Next up will possibly be the F-15JM. It's the plane I fly in tournaments at the moment, so I was thinking of doing some 4v4 breakdowns along with the usual AirRB clips, just to see how people like seeing some different formats. Let me know your thoughts and I'll see you again next time.